As we reported in a previous episode, as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS rebels, rapidly descended on Damascus, President Bashar al-Assad and his wife fled to Moscow, where they were immediately granted asylum. However, his life there is apparently no paradise. He cannot leave Moscow, and Russian authorities have frozen his assets, which according to multiple sources include 270 kilograms of gold, $2 billion, and 18 Moscow apartments. And his wife, Asma al-Assad, who has dual UK-Syrian citizenship and has been fighting a cancer battle, has filed for divorce in Russian court and wants to relocate to London. Reporting on Syria is challenging because there are so many elements to the story. So let me tell you about a resource that I depend on to help me get it right when covering current events: ground news. Let's search a topic among those we're talking about in this episode: U.S. troops in Syria. You can see there are 168 stories on that. Anything more than 50 is considered a lot. So let's compare two headlines. First one is RTV Slovenia, owned by the government of Slovenia, which has high factuality and leans left. So we click through and read the article. This one seems to play it pretty straight. Then we check out this one from First Post News, owned by Mukesh Ambani, again with high factuality, and this one leans right. And right away, we can see the tone of the headline is more critical of the administration. And as we click through, this coverage more greatly emphasizes, and this is kind of unbelievable, how current events in Syria caused the discovery to the highest levels of the Pentagon. That slight difference in coverage allows you to see the situation from multiple sides, which is where most major media outlets fail. You can't get this amount of information organized like this anywhere else. Go to ground.news/ward or scan the QR code on the screen. If you use my link, you can get 50% off unlimited access, which is what I use. Ground News is subscriber funded, so you will not see any ads on their website, which can contribute to sensationalism and clickbait reporting. And by subscribing, you're not only getting a great tool, but you're supporting this channel directly. Meanwhile, back in Syria, as the jubilation of the fall of the brutal regime fades away, HTS leader Ahmad al-Sharaa, formerly known by his jihadi nom de guerre Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, is trying to both keep the uneasy peace in the southeastern part of Syria while establishing a new national identity across the entire country. The first part of that identity is tolerance and moderation across sectarian and tribal lines. Al-Sharaa's dropping of his jihadi name is a signal of that intent. HTS forces occupying the major cities in the West, by and large, haven't harassed Christians or unveiled women, and Shia strongholds that hosted foreign militias haven't been targeted with HTS-led revenge attacks, which has made tens of thousands of Assad's soldiers and members of the Alawite sect comfortable enough to become instant allies of the new leadership. The signal there, after decades of punishing rule by the Alawite-affiliated Assad family, is if HTS is willing to allow Alawites into the new order, they're serious about the idea of total inclusion across lines that were previously uncrossable in Syria. It's also worth noting the recent historical precedent for doing this wrong is the American neocon policy of de-Baathification after toppling Saddam in 2003, which was designed to crush any lingering influence of the dictator's rule, but actually accelerated the rise of an insurgency born of age-old sectarian strife across Iraq. But the HTS-led interim government has thus far failed to prevent individual opposition fighters from targeting the Alawite community in revenge killings, arbitrary arrests, and theft. These instances of sectarian violence have caused some Alawites to refuse to hand in their weapons to the interim government, highlighting how a percentage of the Alawite community currently distrusts the interim government to guarantee their security. HTS-led forces also launched large-scale clearing operations on December 28th, targeting former Assad regime members, which is a subset of the Alawite community. HTS-led forces arrested an unspecified number of former Assad regime military members and seized weapons and ammunition in the city of Set Marco. Mohammed al-Bashir has been appointed the Prime Minister of the transitional government until March of 2025. Among the Prime Minister's priorities is the drawing up of a constitution, which will be designed to codify the fledgling government's goal of a new national identity. The devil is very much in the details, but in general, the key to making it work is giving all parties a stake in success through practical involvement in the new order and not just happy talk about tolerance and inclusion. Those parties start with HTS's allies in the overthrow of the Assad regime, which includes the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, as well as rebels from Daraa, the Homs countryside, and the Druze militias in Sweda, who liberated themselves during HTS's rapid advance on Damascus. The latest Institute for the Study of War map of Syria illustrates the other challenges to al-Sharaa as he attempts to unite Syria. As indicated by the legend at the bottom left, the light brown region is the area HTS controls, which encompasses all the key cities in the western part of Syria, as well as this small area to the east around Deir ez-Zor, which was the site of the battle in 2018, where U.S. special operators and their air support held the line and ultimately decimated Assad's forces with T-72 tanks in company with Wagner Group Russian mercenaries. For more on that battle, check out the recent episode with military historian Kevin Maurer. Note how, unlike the map reviewed in the last episode immediately following Assad's fall, now the areas around Tartus and Latakia no longer include the presence of the Russian military, which appears to have redeployed away from the port and airfield and reportedly intends to reconstitute some of its Mediterranean forces in Libya. As documented in the previous episode dealing with Assad's exit, Iran and their proxy Hezbollah have also pulled out of Syria and now exert little to no direct influence over the country, save the occasional anti-American infidel and Zionist calls to action designed to keep the new government from moving in what the Ayatollah views as too far in the direction of tolerance and moderation. The Iranian Defense Minister, Brigadier General Aziz Nasirzadeh, who gets props from this channel for flying F-14s during his younger days in the Iranian Air Force, emphasized the Iranian Armed Forces' preparedness for what he called hard war and accused the United States and Israel of exacerbating regional instability by orchestrating the ongoing crisis in Syria. Working north on the map shows light yellow that represents areas controlled by the previously mentioned Syrian National Army. Their Turkish support creates inherent tension with the adjacent purple areas, which are controlled by the U.S.-backed Syrian Defense Force, which is a coalition dominated by the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK. Now, a lot of times the media refers to the PKK as simply the Kurds, but that's not entirely accurate, as the Syrian Kurds encompass a politically diverse population well beyond the Kurdistan Workers' Party. There have been recent tensions between the SNA and SDF. As detailed on this ISW map, unspecified fighters detonated a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device in front of a mosque in Manbij in northern Syria on December 27th. The SDF denied responsibility for the attack and blamed the attack on the SNA. And the SDF seized 3 towns along the Euphrates River between the Tishrin Dam and the Kara-Kozak Bridge on December 28th, which threatens SNA's northeastern front and could easily escalate into a full-on battle line. Against the backdrop of these tensions, the question the Kurds are asking is whether HTS leader al-Sharaa will actually make good on his assurances that they'll be able to flourish in a post-Arabist Syria and what the Turks will do to try and prevent that. During a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on December 28th, Turkish Foreign Affairs Minister Hakan Fidan reiterated that Turkey seeks to eliminate the SDF. Fidan emphasized that Turkey, quote, will not allow PKK to take shelter, end quote, in Syria. Turkey equates the SDF in its entirety to the PKK. At the same time, Fidan added that Turkey supports the HTS-led interim government's efforts to ensure Syrian territorial integrity, but apparently that support is contingent on the purple parts of the ISW map turning light yellow, which is no minor obstacle. This phone call happened as Turkey continued to signal a possible incursion into Syria or a Turkish-backed operation in northern Syria to eliminate the SDF. In the face of that, the SDF has tried to preempt a Turkish invasion by declaring the border town of Kobani a demilitarized zone and urging the PKK to withdraw eastward to their base in the Qandil mountains of Iraq. The Turkish desire to eliminate the SDF stands in sharp contrast with the U.S. desire to preserve the SDF, which plays a key role in the counter-ISIS mission. And at this point, perhaps it's necessary to provide a reminder that Turkey and the U.S. are NATO partners. And related to U.S. backing is the question of what American boots on the ground does to Syria's stability and how many boots are actually there. Earlier this month, Pentagon spokesman Air Force General Pat Ryder revealed that there were twice as many American troops in Syria than previously stated. Further, he admitted that only the press focus in the wake of current events in Syria had caused him to be aware of what that number actually was. In other words, the Pentagon's senior military spokesman was ignorant of how many American troops were in Syria until very recently, which induces doubt about what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or even the commander-in-chief knew about the total number. Not a great way to engender confidence in the plan. And as a side note, whatever the plan is, it's going to change as President-elect Trump returns to office if he makes good on what he posted on Truth Social for the U.S. to stay out of Syria. The light blue on the map indicates where American forces are concentrated, labeled here as the Al-Tanf deconfliction zone. As reported in previous episodes, the al-Tanf outpost has been hit by ISIS-led attacks in recent years and presumably remains a target. Also, the U.S. along with the EU still consider HTS a terrorist organization and have not lifted sanctions on Syria, presumably not convinced at this point that the former terrorist group is completely reformed. Critics of this posture have called it preemptive sanctions that undermine the al-Sharaa-led government's chances for success, and it's unclear what HTS has to do to get the sanctions lifted. In addition to all of this, Israel has used the instability as an opportunity to push farther into the Golan Heights in Lebanon while striking Syrian intelligence and military targets, both to eliminate the fledgling government's ability to wage war and, as some regional experts have claimed, to destroy evidence of collaboration with the Assad regime over the years. On top of the numerous factors outlined here are the areas marked with diagonal lines labeled Lost Regime Territory and the darker yellow ones labeled Unidentified Opposition Groups, which together amount to roughly half of Syria. Add those to a potential American withdrawal from the al-Tanf deconfliction zone, and you have a gigantic vacuum that the new government is going to have to fill if the promise of a united Syria is to be realized. All right, that'll do it for this episode. More on this complicated and chaotic situation as the information becomes available. So if you're not already a subscriber, become one so you don't miss anything. And in the meantime, I look forward to talking to you again very soon.